guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. Well, I guess this is inevitable. I have to do the Pac-Man comparison for the Atari 2600 and the Intellivision. I originally wasn't going to do this one because I thought most people are going to say, obviously, the Intellivision is going to be a lot better. But I think there is some, there is something to compare and to discuss about these two versions. Anyways, so this is the last, I believe, of the Atari Soft games that was ported onto the Intellivision. So I've already done Defender, and I've done Centipede, and there's Pac-Man. I don't know if there's any others out there, but if there is, let me know in the comments below. But anyways, so we all know what happened, at least if you're into the Atari, if you're into the history of video games and stuff, or if you grew up with an Atari, you know what happened with the Pac-Man game that came out for the Atari 2600. It just didn't do as good as a lot of people thought it was, and a lot of people bought it and were not happy. But so let's get to playing it, and we'll talk about it. Okay, so we have the screen booted up now. I mean, you can see that it looks like a maze. It's got the dots. Well, they're more like wafers, and I think that's actually how they describe it in the manual, is that they're wafers. But the one thing you do notice also is the ghosts are really wonky in this one. They're really blinky, and they're almost transparent. It's like a flickering nightmare. But yeah, I know there were some challenges when Todd Fry made this game. He had to, limited time, limited budget, just to try and make it work on the system. But anyways, let's get to playing it. Now, the sound, of course, is not the original, not the original Pac-Man sound from the arcade, not even close. But it is a little bit of a, historic sound. If anybody's actually played this game when they were kids, they just remember it, and, the good old days. Now, I do have to say, this is not necessarily to start bashing this game, because it's not a bad game. And I know I've talked to a bunch of people on, the Atari forums and stuff like that, and I've even heard other people in their videos. It's not a bad game. The game plays pretty good. You can make out it's Pac-Man. His chomping is kind of, funny looking. Whoa. And his movement is a little bit bizarre. I know there's a few times where you end up turning around and he's still facing the wrong way or whatever. Whoa, just losing every second here. And the other thing is the maze is different, much different than the arcade version. It's a lot wider. The exit points are at the top and bottom, right here, instead of on the sides. And you don't get the detail when it comes to things like the little wafer there that appears up here. In the arcade, it's supposed to be like, different fruits, like a cherry or an orange. But in this, it kind of looks like a pretzel roll or something like that. It doesn't look right. But again, due to the limitations and the programming methods. And another thing I have to say is, it's not that it was impossible to do, because we do know that there is a homebrew. There's probably a few homebrews out there where they've actually made Pac-Man look proper for the system. But I'm still not going to fault this one, because when I played this when I was a kid, I had no problems with it. I borrowed it from a friend, and I was playing it, and I was like, this isn't a bad game, it's Pac-Man. The levels don't change, the colors don't change, which is, there's no interlude. So it can get boring a little faster, but still, pretty decent for what it was. Okay, so now we have the Intellivision version. So it does have that nice startup screen that we did see on the Centipede, I believe. I don't think this was on the Defender. I'm trying to remember now, but you do have a colorful start screen. It says right there, Atari Pac-Man. It is interesting too. I remember when I first bought the cartridge and I put it into my Intellivision, and I'm like, Pac-Man on the Intellivision is gonna be fun. And I turned it on and I see the Atari symbol staring at me, and I'm like, weird. You know, it's just weird seeing the Atari symbol on an Intellivision. But, you know, it makes sense. They made the game, they're going to shove their logo in there. But anyways, let's get to the game. Alright. So that sounds more like the Pac-Man sound that we're all familiar with from the arcade. But this obviously has got a lot better design to it. It looks a little bit more like Pac-Man. When he's, you know, munching away, that kind of does look like the arcade. The dots are a little bit more like dots. They're not wafers. And look at that, we even have the fruit. And you can tell the ghosts apart. They're not flickering all over the place. And the color schemes are there. I don't know if they're the exact proper colors, but you know, somebody who's a Pac-Man expert might be able to wage in on that one, if those are all the right colors. They're a little bit pastel-y, though. And the board seems a little smaller. Well, definitely a lot smaller than the arcade, for sure. But overall, I mean, this is a pretty neat version. It does have that kind of siren sound to it, too. That sound in the background. They give it a little bit more like an arcade feel. This one's an actual, you know, playable version. Again, and I've talked about this when I was talking about Centipede, when you are playing this on the Intellivision, you gotta remember you're using a disc controller instead of a joystick, and that might have been troublesome for some people, because they might not be used to playing a game like this, where you need to be able to take corners and, you know, have some precision, and I do remember playing this on a real Intellivision. I'm playing this on an emulator, but so I got the luxury of using a gamepad right now. But when I was playing this on the Intellivision, the actual Intellivision, I did notice that the disc controller was giving me a hard time where I would want it to go up or down, and it wouldn't. So, and it's not that the disc controller was broken or anything, because it works on all the other games. So I knew it's just, you know, just the control factor of spinning the disc to get a precision turn in a game like this, where it really counts as to if you make that right move or not. Could be the difference between getting eaten by a ghost or not. But yeah, I mean, so far this obviously wins, obviously, in comparison. But still, it doesn't have the same feel to it that the Atari one did. You know, having its own little story to it, and just being the first to actually pop out a Pac-Man game. It just doesn't have that. But I mean, this is good in so many other ways, in that it would give you a feel of playing the actual arcade game. Which is what we always wanted, really, when we were kids, and we put these things into our systems. We wanted to replicate the arcade experience. And unfortunately, the Atari Pac-Man failed to do that. Well, there we go. We've now compared the Pac-Man and Centipede and Defender for the Atari 2600 versus the Intellivision. This one was a little bit more difficult because the Atari version really isn't up to par, and so when you're comparing something like that to something like this, it's a little bit tricky to not want to just smash the Atari version all to pieces. And I tried to be as non-biased as I could, based on the fact that, you know, I remember growing up and playing on the Atari, and I never cared that the graphics were not as inferior, or were more inferior, I should say, to the games I was playing on my Intellivision. I just knew they were both systems, and they both had their own ups and downs. Either way, I think when it comes down to it, you're going to play what you enjoy, and a lot of people have a lot of fond memories when it comes to the Atari 2600 version, and they'll probably still enjoy playing the Atari 2600. It's just the way it is. I mean, when you grow up with something, you always seem to cherish it when you're older. Anyways, let me know what you think. I mean, both versions are great. They're both playable. There's no problems in my area, or for what I think. But I'd like to know what you think. Which one did you grow up with? Which one did you play? Compare it to the arcade if you want. Compare it to any other ports. There's a few of them out there. Oh, actually, there's lots of them. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.